Hello and welcome to Real Life with Lisa. I'm Lisa Jacobson and I am married to Matthew Jacobson, and together we have 8 children. Well, the last couple of weeks we've been talking about holidays and how to prepare your family, how to prepare your home for holidays that are peaceful, that are joyful, and stress-free and debt-free. But today I wanted to talk specifically about marriage and how the holidays can impact your marriage. So I will tell you a story of our first Christmas and of our first year of marriage. We had decided to invite his family over, mostly it was his siblings, his married siblings, over for a Christmas Eve time. And when I sent out the invitations to all his sisters and brother-in-laws and everybody, I said that we were gonna, please come over. It's sort of an open house thing. We're gonna have light snacks and just enjoy being together. And I meant that quite literally and with all my heart. And so everybody came over. We had a very small little apartment that we lived in, and we had just all bunched in together, and everybody's having a great time and mingling and enjoying the holidays. And then I noticed, I just sensed this tension in the air after we'd been there for like an hour or more. And I couldn't tell what was going on. I was new to the family, so I wasn't sure what the dynamics were, but I could just feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like how you just feel that stress. And finally, I asked his sister, Penny, who I was really close to, and said, Penny, what's going on? And she said, now, I think everybody's just getting hungry and they're waiting for you to serve the food. Now, I had put out a big bowl of popcorn. I think there was a tray of cheese and crackers and maybe some dessert. I think some Christmas cookies or something. And so I thought, well, I did put out the food. Like, that is the food. And she goes, oh, my kids have basically not eaten all day today because we were coming to your house for Christmas Eve. And I said, yes. And I said on the invitations, light snacks. And she said, oh, well, I guess we didn't really thought you meant it. We were all planning on a big meal on Christmas Eve, like we always do every year. And that was the moment where my whole world came crashing in, and I, being the new bride that I was, I burst into tears and had to go to the bathroom, and my mascara was everywhere. And bless her heart, she just went into my little refrigerator, my little freezer, and just started pulling out sausages, anything she could find to make for food. And his family, they're very gracious, thankfully, never said a word to me. But it was my first very real and very hard lesson on expectations over holidays, especially when you've got 2 different families that are coming together. So in his family, the tradition is that you have a big meal on Christmas Eve night, and then the next day it's kind of more the snacky thing, and cinnamon rolls and maybe leftovers and things like that. Well, in my family, it was the exact opposite. We had a light supper on Christmas Eve, and our big meal was on Christmas Day. Now, I don't think it was reasonable, but nevertheless, I was very upset with my husband for not communicating this to me, and I think he just never thought about it one way or the other. And I told him, I said, I explained that we were having light snacks. Didn't you notice that I wasn't cooking and that your family would expect that? And he goes, I wasn't really thinking about that one way or another. So thankfully it had a happy ending, and I dried my tears, and we all recovered from the evening, and the kids ate a lot of Three Musketeers and other non-traditional Christmas foods that evening, and nobody ever said a word afterwards about it. But that just tells you how easy it is, isn't it, for a married couple to have 2 totally different pictures, 2 totally different traditions even, on what those holidays look like. So that brings me to the first way that you can prepare your marriage to have a wonderful, loving holiday, and that is communicate expectations. So take the time before it even gets started, the day before, December 1st, if you can, and just say, all right, honey, let's spend this evening after dinner and let's talk about what you're thinking about for this Christmas and what I'm thinking about for this Christmas. And if your relationship is anything like ours, I usually have a pretty good pulse on what his family is also thinking. So I'll throw that in there so that he knows that that's the way it's going to look. I think not only is it important to be really open and honest about your feelings and expectations, I also would encourage you to do this annually because those expectations can change from year to year. There are some years where we have a priority, like I think this year, Matt's dad is not well and probably won't be with us for that much longer. And so for this year, our priority is to make sure that we're near him during this Christmas time, whereas maybe other years we'll be more flexible about going other places or doing other things. So we'll have Christmas at our house this year, just so to accommodate that. That's just an example. There's just different ways that those changes, those expectations can change over time. All right, so that's the first one. The second one, and this is so important. Well, I guess the first one was important too, but second one is hold your traditions loosely. And it is so easy to take traditions, things that you've grown up with, things that you expect, and to hold them tight and make those sacred. But you know what? Can I just say this? A tradition is just that. It's a tradition. It is not sacred. And it is not worth getting in an argument with your husband. It is not worth having tension in your home because you are so determined to keep those traditions that you've always held. So just traditions are fun. We have our own family traditions, but our desire is that we would hold those loosely and that those don't become the most important thing. Because as we've talked about in earlier conversations the last couple of weeks, what's important? That Christ is honored, that we have loving relationships, that we have peace in our home. Those come so far before any of those traditions that are wonderful when they're in their place, but they should never dominate your home or your heart. Does that make sense? Okay. The next one is closely followed, and that is to protect your marriage. And keeping that unity in your relationship is so critical during the holidays, because I find that if he and I are one, no matter what happens, no matter we've had some disastrous Christmases. I should tell you about them sometime, but we won't do that today, of things that have been very hard, either relationally or even physically, health-wise, and just nutty. But if we're on the same page together, it almost doesn't matter what those other things happen, right? Because there's that loving unity between the two of you. So protect your marriage above all. Don't take sides with his family, with your family. Don't let your church expectations dominate. Just be sure that you two are on the same page above all. Okay, next way, and we touched upon this in other conversations as well, but stick to your budget. If other than traditions, the only other one that I know is such a powerful force in destruction over the holidays is that financial pressure. So take your budget, stick to it, agree to it, and make it simple so that you both are free to enjoy the holidays. I was going to actually mention this new book this year that I found. It's by Rachel Cruz, who's the daughter of Dave Ramsey, if you're familiar with the Ramsey Foundation. But it's called Love Your Life, Not Theirs. And it's just 7 money habits for living the life you want. And the reason I mention this, I just think it's a great book to read through, ideally even together, or both of you read it, because it talks about the freedom of being debt-free, of not having to keep up with your neighbors. And for many of our Christmases, we have not done things the way maybe others around us did it. We do not have, like I've said, lots of gifts. We don't give each other expensive items. We've kept it really basic. And the blessing of that and the benefit of that has been just that freedom from, at the end of the year, having this big debt that we have to carry into the new year. So I just want to encourage you, if you need a resource, to find out ways to work those kinds of things out together. All right. Then the last one is to be considerate of one another. And I think, it's always our natural tendency, isn't it, to kind of think of the way we look at things, the way how things affect us. And even more so than any other time, the holidays seem to have this amazing way of just kind of putting you in the pressure that those things come out even more so. So you're more watching out for your own interests. And just a reminder that be considerate of the other person and what they need as well. I'll give you an example from our own marriage. I am definitely more of an introvert in our family. So for me to have lots of parties, lots of social gatherings, even though I love people and I like those events, but if I have too many of those in a row, it just wigs me out. I just get edgy and snappy, and I just don't feel like I'm even myself. And so for my husband, that means maybe turning down some things, that events and other activities that he would normally say yes to. But for my sake, we just agree that we're not going to do quite so many things. And for his sake, he's an extrovert. He loves being with people. He likes being out and about. And so sometimes I have to be out late in the evening at an event that I would much rather be in my pajamas at home. But that's okay, because I know that also means something to him. And so that can go both ways, where you're each being mindful of the other. Another example I can think of is one time when we were, I told you every year we sit down and we look at all the events and invitations that we have, and we evaluate whether we're going to do each thing. And there was an annual cookie exchange, and so I figured that that's something that isn't that what everybody does? You have to go to the cookie exchange. And when that particular opportunity came up, my husband mentioned, he said, I really don't think you should do that this year. And I'm like, what? You can't have Christmas without a cookie exchange? And he said, do you realize, Lisa? And he said it really gently, so I hope I'm communicating this well. But he said, do you realize how we all just kind of stay away from you on cookie exchange day? I thought, oh no, that's terrible. So apparently I just get a little too edgy and wrapped up in cookie exchange day. And instead of being a blessing to my family, it was actually very stressful in my home. And I realized that I needed to just forego that particular opportunity, and that maybe we would only have one or two kinds of cookies that year. But the blessing was that Mom was not edgy and snappy, and I don't know about your home, but my home would give up a variety of cookies any day to have a mom that's a little more relaxed and a wife that's a little less edgy. So those are some examples of ways that you can be considerate of one another, and sometimes that means giving up things that you would normally maybe want to choose, but for the sake of peace and love in your relationship, it's totally worth it. So I just want to close with this. I just want to close by encouraging you to focus on Christ the King and what his coming means to us. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Isaiah 9:6. God bless you, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas season and celebrating his birth and his coming as a king. Thank you.